Hi everyone, Laura Renner here with Freedom Makers, here to discuss our weekly Facebook Live topic. And this week's topic is tech tools. And we're going to specifically talk about electronic signature software. I personally use Docusign and have recommended Docusign to others. Another popular one is Hellosign. And then there are a ton of other ones as well. So it just depends on your own preference and your own budget. But sometimes there are tasks we do that don't feel like they're that time consuming. In reality, they are. And that's why I wanted to talk about Docusign this week specifically as a tech tool, because contracts specifically can be rather time consuming, even though they don't seem like they are. Really anything that requires a signature, you can use a signature signing software for. But today, let's use contracts as our example. So let's say, for example, that you have your contract in a Word document and you get a new client. Probably, I'm guessing, we're going to review the steps here that it takes to get a contract out to a new client. You might have it as a master template. Maybe you have it as the last client, your last new client. You just take that and save it as your new client. Either one is fine, but I'm sure each of us do one way or the other. Me, I had a master template and yet still used the last client's contract and just changed it around for the new client. So you take this template, you update it with the new client information. Hopefully you don't leave anything from the previous client in there that makes it obvious that you've reformatted it. And then you have to save it somewhere. Then you probably convert it to PDF. Maybe you leave it as Word, but you might convert it to PDF. If you notice a mistake, now you have to go back and do that all over again. Now you finally have a draft that you think is okay, and you go into your email. You got to type up the email. You got to attach the contract. Then you hit send, and you wait for them to sign it. Hopefully it doesn't get lost in their email. And if it does, or if they take a while to sign it, then you question, maybe they didn't really want to become a client, and maybe you follow up with them here and there, and then finally they do sign it. If you're lucky, they sign it right away. And then once it's signed, the client has to print it, sign it, scan it, and then send an email to you with it attached, unless they have their own e-signature that they can do all of that on email. But it's still, they have to open it, download it, sign it, save it, reattach it, send it to you. And then once it's signed and you receive it, now you have to remember to download it, save it somewhere, hopefully in the same spot. Maybe you have a new folder for each client, or you have a folder for all of your contracts. But the fact of the matter is you have to save it somewhere, or you just leave it in your email and hopefully you never have to find it. Or if you do, you go search in your email. So what are the problems with this process? First of all, that is over 9 steps. So, this idea that a contract, sending it out is easy, it doesn't take up that much time. It's 9 steps with a lot of follow-up and a lot of opportunities for mistakes and forgetting about it. And it's sitting on your mind the whole time. So one problem is you could have mistakes in the contract that you don't even notice till after they sign it. Another problem is you have to keep track of where the contract is in the process. And if you have multiple clients starting at a time, you're having to keep track of all that probably in your head. You have to remember to store it somewhere once you receive it with a signature. As I mentioned, the client has to download it, print it, sign it, scan it, upload it, or attach it and send it to you, and all those extra steps. It's not just contracts, right? It's the same for all documents that require a signature. We are focusing on contracts for the purposes of this Facebook Live today. And so that's a lot of repeating small steps where a lot of mistakes can happen. And as I mentioned, more than 9 steps. What I just went through was more than 9 steps for one supposedly simple task. So what's the solution? that's the tech tool I wanted to share with you today. There are things like Docusign, Hellosign, a ton of other software out there. I also learned today that Adobe Pro has an option to do that as well, which is useful if you deal with security information that you don't feel comfortable or you're not allowed to upload to an external website. Then something like Adobe Pro is probably a better fit for you. I do know things like Docusign is approved for realtors and mortgage brokers, and they're dealing with a lot of confidential, sensitive, personal information, and so it is possible to use it. I'm not sure if Docusign has some sort of privacy option or an ability to not be online with it, but I think Adobe Pro does. Adobe lets you do it within your own email system, I think. The nice thing about these softwares, including Adobe, but I'm going to talk about Docusign specifically since that's the one I know, and they're all going to be roughly the same, is you can create a master template. And the parts that change are coded, if you will, in the software. So when you pull up your template and you designate who's going to sign it, you can designate who needs to fill out what parts. And so when you create this template, all those parts that need to change are blank. But then when you go to create a specific one for a person, it'll take you through each blank. You fill out the ones you need to fill out, and you assign the blank ones that the client needs to fill out to the client. So it just takes a few clicks to customize, and you never have to worry about missing something that you forgot to customize previously because it's saved in the software. It's the same process every time. So if you can even designate who signs first. So maybe you have your client sign first and then you sign second, and it's the same each time. So it's literally just a few clicks and everything happens. It makes it easy to track because the software will track who you sent what and when, and if they opened it and reviewed it, if they signed it, if it's getting close to, if you set an expiration, if it's getting close to the expiration. In fact, on mine Docusign, when I log in, I see this overview, and it has these 4 sections. One is called action required, which means my signature is required. One is called waiting, meaning I'm waiting for someone else to sign. The other is called expiring soon, and the 4th is called completed. And it has a number next to each one. So as soon as I log in, I see, oh, there's some that I need to sign, or oh, these X, Y, and Z clients haven't signed yet, or some might be expiring, and then the last one, all the completed. Which is the other nice thing, is now all of my contracts are stored in one place. I don't have to worry about, did they sign, and if they did, what did I do with it? It's all there in that one spot. Very easy to track and manage. The client receives a link to the template, so they just go in and they click the link, and they can, even if they're not a Docusign user, they're able to sign electronically, and then I get notified when they sign it. As I mentioned earlier, it's legally acceptable for people like realtors and mortgage brokers to use, at least Docusign. I don't know about the other software. And so to me, that's a sign of the security and accepted legally bindingness of it. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know, but if realtors and mortgage brokers are allowed to use it, I'm guessing that makes it pretty legally binding. And I just learned today that Docusign specifically can now accept payments with a signed agreement. So if you include a deposit or some sort of, first payment situation with your contract, you can now somehow connect it so that when they sign it, they also make a payment. And I think that's pretty neat. That's actually something that I was thinking the other day I need to incorporate somehow into my processes. So I'll be exploring that myself. So with tech tools like Docusign, you no longer basically have to recreate the wheel, right? So in the previous steps I listed, where you're finding an old template, customizing it, uploading it to email and sending it and things like that, you're basically recreating the wheel each time, because you have to remember where to go in and make the changes, and then you have to upload it and you have to track if they received it, did they look at it, did they sign it, did you receive it back signed, and you have to keep all of that in mind, whereas the software takes care of that for you. I think clients get started faster because it's just so easy for them to click that link, and rather than, oh, I got to print this, let me get back to it later when I have time, and then it gets buried in their email and you have to follow up with them. None of that really happens. You eliminate this task, this supposedly simple task that had more than 9 steps. All of that just goes out the window, just a few clicks, done, which of course then makes it easy to delegate. And you can assign your virtual assistant, Freedom Maker, to take care of it for you. Of course, as with any software, you can get reports, so you can look at how long are contracts staying out before they're signed. You can look at how many you're signing each month. It helps you to just track. If you're a reports kind of person, you can easily track what's going on with all of your contracts. And finally, my favorite, it reduces email. How much greater would your life be if you had that one less type of email to deal with, being contracts or really anything that requires a signature? An example, I turned a friend on a Docusign a couple weeks ago. Part of her business includes recruiting for her clients, and not only is she now using Docusign to have them sign contracts, but she's also using it to send offer letters to new hires and include any onboarding paperwork that requires review and signature by these new hires. So there's a lot of applications for it. If you're having people needing to sign things or review things, I could see attorneys, it'd be useful for them. Obviously, realtors and mortgage brokers, it's a big deal for them. So if your business requires signatures, even with just a contract, I highly recommend considering a software like Docusign or Hellosign, things like that, to make it easier for you. I guess I should put a disclaimer that I have no relationship with Docusign. I'm not getting any type of reward or fee for plugging them. I'm just plugging them because that's who I use, and I'm satisfied. I'm pleased with their service, and of course makes it so much easier to onboard new clients having the contracts taken care of in that software. That's the tech tool for today. If you have any questions or you want to share which software you like, feel free to do so in the comments, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.